Hi, guys. Welcome back to Keeping It Simpla. So, today we have a very special guest with us. We have our friend, a finance expert who's been working here since a very long time. We have Saad Zafar with us. Saad, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi everybody. Thanks, Javier, for having me on board, and thank you for having me on the Simple podcast. Really excited to be here.
It's good to have you.
Thank you.
So, Saad, there's been a lot of recent updates, and since you've been working here for a long time and you are very aware of everything that's AI and tech, there's been a lot of recent updates regarding it. Do you want to speak about that a little bit?
Sure, let's get down to it. Um, well, thank you for letting me be an expert on a lot of AI stuff. But the gentlemen right across me are actually way ahead in the game with all the products that they've currently been launching, which we will be hearing about soon, right? So, but it was an exciting week in AI. We had Google doing their I/O event, OpenAI doing their GPT-4o launch, and then we had Microsoft doing something like Copilot plus PC, or
Yeah.
that was, I mean, they could definitely do better with names. So,
I think all of them.
yeah, it's true. Yeah, I think even GPT-4o
Oh, it's
was like,
very basic.
uh-oh.
I think when we get to GPT 25, I think like there's a certain point we need to stop the number names.
That's true. I think it was really interesting. The first in line was GPT-4o, and right next day it was Google I/O. And when they did the launch, I think there was a lot of pent up excitement about OpenAI. That's what I mean, people were following, were really looking forward to. But it kind of like I think fizzled down a bit after that event. It wasn't a very large event to start off with, and a lot of it looked a bit staged. I think
Yeah.
Matt, you have the same views like I do.
Yeah. I think, yeah, all of them, it seems very scripted, right?
Yeah,
There's the way that they kind of interpret all of the kind of situations.
true.
The latency seemed a little bit too clean.
Yeah.
I think I did see some videos afterwards and they're going, okay, when are you going to give me the response?
True, and I think, but I think some key facts that came out of that was, the really interesting choice to actually keep it free, to bring that to every person on board, and apparently, I was reading an article on ZNet I think recently, and their app figures went crazy in terms of downloads on the phone because of the multimodal access for everybody for free, and that was really interesting. It also carried a lot of controversy. So it had Scar Joe's voice
Oh,
without
yeah, I've heard
her
about that.
consent, it seems, and now they pulled
Yeah.
it off or pulled it out. So that was also interesting. I think my key takeaway from the OpenAI event was something really big is still cooking in the background. They've probably just done like this half sort of an event to tell people that this is coming. A lot of things are coming, and giving this thing for free is obviously to learn about how people are using it, to get that free data feedback. But also, I think we're probably getting closer to the big five. I hope so. Matt has some views on that. I would like
Well,
you to chime in.
yeah, I think like, so you've heard about the Gartner hype cycle.
Oh yes.
So I think we're probably getting to a kind of peak at the moment on that first hype cycle. And a lot of the stuff we're seeing now, okay, it's still very cool. The potential's amazing.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not a lot of kind of very new stuff in terms of how it's going to be actually changing the world. I think workflows and things are still being built out. The tech isn't quite there. Like there's still some latency issues that
Yeah.
are kind of coming out. I think same thing we're probably going to mention about the Google side, but I think that was a very similar setup. It seemed very scripted and very designed. There was a big backlash initially when the Gemini video was launched because they said that the times were all kind of edited out and
Yeah.
things like that. So, but I think GPT-5 will be interesting, but there is definitely limitations to LLMs. I think I was watching something recently. It was really interesting take was that the LLMs, there is a limitation to them. And what we actually realized by deploying the LLM tech was not necessarily that it was very, very advanced. It was more that actually language is not as complicated as we initially thought. So in order to create that kind of predictive model and using a kind of transformer base,
Yeah.
actually it's actually a lot easier. The rules and kind of the way that you can use language wasn't actually as complicated as we thought in the first place. Now, there is limitations because obviously we know the hallucinations, we know the accuracy. Math's still a big problem with LLMs, but it's interesting. I think there will be limitations, and we'll probably get to the end of the cycle we're at. It will have massive value, but there is still a massive hurdle to kind of jump, and it'll be interesting to see whether we get to that.
Absolutely. I think this everybody's in that LLM race right now. I mean, you got the Amazon. I mean, you got Amazon working
Anthropic.
out for, what's the other one? Claude.
Anthropic, Claude,
Exactly.
phenomenal.
Exactly. So
You're a convert, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm switching over.
yeah, Claude.
I use both of them right now, but I think Claude has a lot more depth. It doesn't hallucinate as much. And the writing style is a lot closer to how we'd love to see it. It's very humanized compared to GPT. Like you can just tell GPT's output a lot of times now, right? It's very standard. It'll just close out everything with in summary or in
I
conclusion.
think you can because you live with them.
I
You
can.
made friends.
I can. But Claude is, it's very different, and I think the context limit, everything is a lot more wider. The usage limit, however, is lower than GPT.
Guys, please follow Wahaj on LinkedIn and make friends with him.
He's a celebrity. He's a celebrity over there. Please.
No, I'm not. I just like to play with new elements.
I link it down below here so you can. But for non-tech people like myself, can you guys just explain what is hallucination in terms of AI?
Yeah. So hallucination. There was a few kind of different. In fact, there was an interesting one for a law case. So a guy decided to use ChatGPT. I think it's pretty early days. Decided to use ChatGPT to defend a parking ticket or a fine or something.
All right.
And so anyway, went to court. I think it was maybe even a landlord. Went to court with all these documents, and was citing all of these really kind of important precedents in the law and the statutes. And they got about halfway through the trial, and they went, "Who's your attorney?" And they were like, "ChatGPT," and it just made up a ton of the new laws just to fit it.
Oh god.
And the issue with the tech is that it tries to find a fit regardless. So when you're trying to do a prediction, so you're basically kind of predicting the next words, and it can do it on a very very high level. But if you can't do that, and you add like a bit of creativity, so you allow it to have a wider probability, wider accuracy, wider confidence, you end up in a position where it starts making stuff up. So hallucination is when it kind of actually hallucinates. It creates like a reality or a world that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Just to solve the question. So this is it's a big problem across all LLMs. So something that we had to deal with, and actually was the reason that we started Simpla in the first place, was that we realized that there was, because of the creativity output that you allow in ChatGPT, which creates some really cool things, poetry, stories, things like that. For an actual use case, like for an actual business use case, like Simpla is trying it with tax, there is absolutely no way you can kind of start creative accounting or create a tax.
Absolutely.
Because you break the law.
Yeah.
So we basically we managed to solve that. There was a few different ways we did it, but it was that's a hallucination.
Nice.
Not mushrooms.
Yeah, that's exactly where my mind went. But regards to the events and the new launches and stuff, AI launches and language models and everything, I feel like it's just basically new wrapping, but the product is the same from the inside. It's kind of like a marketing gimmick as well to keep the hype up. Do you guys agree with that?
Partially.
Yeah.
I think the models are evolving. I think the context limit, token limit, everything is increasing. It's getting deeper.
Wahaj is making more friends.
I'm making more friends. I can be a little more lazy. But I think to truly identify the difference, you have to be a very regular and an active user of these, right? So if someone just uses GPT once in a while, the difference from 3 to 3.5 is very subtle. The difference from 3.5 to 4 is also subtle.
Yeah.
I haven't used 4.0 much, so I can't comment. But I just tried it a couple of times. Honestly, I couldn't tell the difference up until now. But you can tell the difference between various LLMs as they evolve. If you compare 1 versus 4, you'll definitely see a massive difference.
Yeah.
So it is incremental.
I think it's basically mainly to do with the image and like the image recognition, also the voice side. So they already had Whisper that they'd already been working on anyway. The whole idea was, okay, now we just put these things together and create a new way of interacting with it.
Yeah.
Which I think is super interesting. I think it's definitely a load of really, really cool applications that will come out. But in terms of the actual underlying tech, not a lot has really changed overall.
But I'd like to add that definitely what you mentioned, Matt, that it is the multimodal side of it is what's currently growing. What's interesting is, and maybe we could segue into Google I/O's event, is that whereas ChatGPT or GPT-4o was like a native model that they were talking about, like everything is going to be done under one in one package. Gemini allowed Google, because of their plethora of apps that they already have or softwares they already have, integrations across all the
Yeah.
softwares, and that's the bit that, to your point, looks like a wrapping, but it's also, I mean, if it's used correctly, because
Yeah.
that's the thing that I have with Google I/O, Google I/O's event, yeah, or any Google event, right? There's a lot of promise, and then there's like a 30% of delivery, right?
Yeah.
Similar to Microsoft. We've not seen something with OpenAI. I mean, they've been delivering in piecemeal, so it's happening.
There is some questions about the underlying data, though. I know there's more and more things coming out at the moment. I think there's an ongoing thing with the OpenAI CTO being asked a question about their video model. So is it Sora?
Sora.
Sora.
Yeah,
Sora.
I've seen that video.
And and basically gets asked directly, are you using YouTube videos? Are you using like things as the backup to train your model? And she kind of avoids the question as much as possible. And it's like, no, I'm not sure. I need to. And that's something that a lot of the things, I remember when Sam Altman was on 20VC and there was people like posting, ask him about the training data. But they are now, they're trying to address that. I did see that Sam's talking about, basically I think the aim that he's got is we want to create a way you can remove your content if it's being used to train the model. So there is something that they're trying to kind of address that, because I think there's more and more backlash, especially with the Scarlett Johansson voice thing as well. I think interestingly, we were talking about this before, and if they hadn't asked her in the first place for permission, probably wouldn't even have been big.
They would have been fine,
Yeah.
So but it's interesting.
So you try to do the right thing.
Yeah,
do
but
the right thing, and you get.
And then did not.
but I'm pretty sure it must have gotten noticed by a lot of people if they even hadn't asked her for permission or anything.
I don't know. it
No, I
depends.
think it's some legal gray area, apparently. I'm not a lawyer, but from what I was reading online, if you reach out to someone for permission and they deny that request, you can't pursue it. But if
Yeah,
you haven't
obviously.
reached out for permission and you've just used it, apparently that's okay.
Oh.
So a lot of these, South Park and stuff, they don't
Yeah.
ask for permission before making fun of an actor and an
Yeah,
actress.
yeah,
They
yeah.
just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Apparently, that's not wrong. But if you've sought permission and they've rejected or denied that
Yeah.
request, then it's wrong.
I feel like South Park would just do it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, okay, South Park is an outlier, but I think that's what happens with everyone, right?
But
But yeah, it's basically asking forgiveness begging forgiveness is a lot easier than asking permission.
yeah.
So a lot of companies actually get very far, and then they have a lot of lawsuits and stuff later on. But they're already big enough that they can then battle those. And I think that's kind of where OpenAI has kind of got to.
Yeah, they're like, we'll just do it now and then take care of it later. So even if you guys had a choice to have a voice in your assistants or like AI assistants, who would the
That's
voice
a good question.
I'd probably want John F. Kennedy. I love his voice.
Really?
or Morgan
Yeah.
Freeman?
Interesting.
Morgan Freeman, that's
Yes,
good.
yeah.
Actually, it's
Actually,
very
yeah, Morgan
That would
Freeman.
be amazing.
I've seen a video of him doing GPS, right? It was
I'd be maybe Ian McKellen. Like I feel like the Gandalf voice.
good. Oh yeah, that's good. That's good.
Something like that. Maybe a Michael Gambon or something. I think like that, kind of like an old. Richard Attenborough. Richard Attenborough.
All right. Yeah. All right.
Ask him about my daily schedule
Yeah.
today.
That's going to be awesome.
who would you
I
want?
can imagine that right
Who
now.
would you want?
I did not think of this, but I need to think deeply. Can we ask this question?
At the end,
Towards
we're
the
going to
end.
circle back.
We're
100%.
gonna
I
circle
wanna
back
find out.
to this, yeah. But regarding AI, so there's another news. So OpenAI is like secretly like trying to come up with their own search engine. Thoughts about that?
Well, you actually use Perplexity quite a lot, don't you, Raj?
Yeah.
How do you find that? I guess what could AI bring to the table that Perplexity currently haven't got? Is it just going to be a kind of competition between the two?
Unless GPT comes up or OpenAI, comes up with something massively groundbreaking. I think Perplexity is a good sort of stepping ground to your research. I still won't use it as a Google replacement. I would still
Yeah.
use Google over Perplexity, but sometimes for some things it's better because it cites the sources and you know
Yeah.
directly where to go. I think if somehow they're able to embed all of those within one and you have the option of selecting which sources, because the sources it pulls, there's no way to identify or distinguish between how relevant or irrelevant they are, right? So for example, I've searched up my company, and there was an article in some website that cited Oblique Consult, and it brought that up, right? So very random website.
Yeah.
Now that leads me to believe that it's going to crawl the web, pick up anything, versus Google has got that whole mechanism
Index, yeah.
of crawler indexing and relevance, and how old the website is, how reliable it is. So your search results usually at the top are very, very relevant.
Yeah.
And there are also websites that are very credible usually.
Yeah.
So I still juggle between the two.
Yeah.
I think OpenAI could crack that,
Yeah.
but I think you need to give some power to the user to determine the relevance or the credibility until such time where you're able to replicate Google's model of doing that for you.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Because what they do is they vectorize all of the web pages for everything on the web.
Yeah.
So that's Perplexity's model. I'm interested now. I'm just thinking about how they actually order that data.
I think it's pretty good. It does help you in your research, and if you ask it an accounting question, it's going to cite PwC, Deloitte, KPMG, but then maybe the fourth result would be some random website that I've never heard of.
Wildcard.
A wildcard, yeah. So I think everyone's new to the LLM game, right? So everyone's sort of evolving, coming up with new ways of doing things. I think Perplexity is also going to get there, but I think OpenAI have something up their sleeve which they're ready to unveil soon.
They probably already vectorized the whole web.
Yeah, I think they've got everything.
But obviously we know that Google just did that announcement with Googling that let the Google let Google for you. Or something like that.
No, but in fact, it was a really interesting one I saw. So someone had posted a comment, and they were like, the Google at the moment will give you a really good answer, and it will give you a summary at the top.
Yeah.
So you ask a question, and it will give you the best answer ready. They then implemented Gemini, I think, into it to basically do an LLM response at the top. And it was actually a lot more kind of wordy. It wasn't quite as clean. It wasn't as kind of direct in terms of the response, which I think was interesting. I think there's a big push for everyone to LLM everything.
Yeah.
And actually, like, if you've already got a good product and it's better than what you're currently trying to do, okay, build on it.
Yeah.
That's fine. But don't just add
don't
add AI for AI's sake. Right?
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
There's another hot topic these days, which I feel like Matt would have a lot to say about. I've actually been researching on this quite a lot for our newsletter, Making It Simpla. So this is the Rabbit AI versus Humane AI pin.
Man.
And so Humane is now looking for a buyer after its very underwhelming debut.
Ooh, that's
So just let's discuss, let's dissect.
Well, do you know how much they were asking for?
I think their last was $1 billion.
Yeah, $1 billion.
$1 billion.
For a product that didn't do very well. I think the big issue, the reason they're selling it is because they had a lot of issues with the latency. So there was an MKBHD.
MKBHD. Marcus Brownlee High Definition.
There you go.
What he said.
No, so he did a really, really scathing interview. And I actually think it was pretty fair. Like, I think when he was going for it and he was like, you were trying to replace a phone with something that's slower than a phone. So if I can pick it up, I can use Google Lens and I can literally take a photo of the item and it will give me the result. And then 10 seconds later, I get the response with something that's not quite working. I think the idea is great. I think it's cool. I definitely think there was a space for another product. Again, where you bring Rabbit in, do I think that's the way forward as well? I think they went for the kind of gimmick with kind of like a retro game style.
Like a Nintendo.
Cool.
Yeah.
But again, I think they went into a better price point.
Yeah.
Because actually going cheaper, not trying to oversell, when you're selling $700 for a Humane
$700.
open,
Yeah. $7.99.
$7.99,
$7.99.
$800
Versus
round it up.
$200 for the Rabbit, right?
Yeah, exactly. So when you kind of look at the comparison, you're okay, cool. The Rabbit is still early days. They managed to get a lot of hype. I think there's some interesting things they're trying to do. Was it large action model?
Yeah, large action model.
Which is basically just a scraper in a packet, right?
With macros.
Exactly. But I think like there's a real good opportunity for something to do it. I just don't think that we're there yet. And I think the latency is still an issue. Again, looking at GPT 4.0, looking at the Gemini run through in the King's Cross office, with all very clear staged platforms where they had Schrodinger's cat, Schrodinger's box, and then they were looking out in the King's Cross, and they go like, "Yeah, you're in King's Cross." All of that obviously very well staged. Whether or not the latency is quite there, again, over promise, under deliver is not really accepted now, and you can see it on share prices a lot of the time when actually something's released. You just see, but I think Meta, again, like there was a really interesting review with Mark Zuckerberg, and he was talking about there is going to be some limitations to where we can go, and again, limitations to LLMs, but it's actually more to do with the investment now needed. So in order to get these better models trained, you need bigger and bigger data centers.
True.
And in order to do something there, you need to actually build the data center. The biggest issue is the energy, space, the zoning, the planning, the permits.
And then eventually having the scale.
Yeah.
Like you eventually need to recover that money and
and
that's
make it
gonna
on
be
a
the-
commercial, right?
Yeah, make it
you're a
commercial,
business
exactly.
at the end of the day.
absolutely.
So, but yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting one. Like
Yeah.
Humane, Rabbit, one of them might get better, and someone learns from kind of iterates. I think the big backlash with Marcus Brown,
MKBHD.
MKBH.
so basically a lot of the backlash I think was unfair, because I think at the end of the day his job is a review.
Yeah.
Like that's what he does. He reviews products, and I've seen lots of his reviews and they've been very good. But I think that it was a review. No one really liked it from Humane. And then there was a lot of backlash going, oh, it's a startup company.
Yeah.
It was like a startup company with several hundred million dollars that didn't actually fulfill and overpromised and underdelivered.
Yeah.
If you guys had a choice to try it out for free, which one would you choose or prefer to try out?
I think Rabbit for me. It's just that it makes more commercial sense even for me to shell out that much money. I mean, $800 for an AI pin, which I need to charge, by the way, and do a lot of homework on. It's just a bit too much, I guess. The other one, it seems like because of the LAM, the large action model, that itself, however, is a bit broken. I think when they're trying to research it, because when what they promised was that out of the box will come with 800 apps or 800 app connectors, right? But it seems like you have to do it like it's a very manual task to connect those apps. So I think they're currently with Spotify and I think 3 or 4 other apps.
It defeats the purpose.
Yeah, so it's like it'll take a lot of manpower to actually build those connectors, unless there is an AI way to solve that problem. So that was one of the things that people were thinking about while reviewing that product.
Like I
at this
guess
stage.
with Spotify, you can already do, like Spotify, you've got Alexa, like you can already do it by voice, right?
True.
So there's some things there. I'm like, they're solving problems that I don't think are really there yet. Like I think in the future those problems will be there, but I don't think that it's necessarily a massive issue at the moment.
I think the whole idea is flawed at this stage in terms of trying to encapsulate or create a new product, like a physical product, for something that is now already available on your phones and your watches. I mean, watches is one thing which is anyways being touted as like, why do we need phones on the watches, right? Yeah. It's there, it's great, fine, but it's not a primary base of using it, right? That's why I think the phone is still going to be the central piece of everybody's AI companion with the series or whoever is the next AI or ScarJo in OpenAI's voice.
With accessories like the watch or headphones.
Yeah, and I don't think they're gonna replace smartphones anytime soon. I feel there's like a long way to go before that happens.
What I feel is that Vision, Apple Vision Pro.
Yeah.
That's if that is able to scale, if that is able to get something, that is perhaps where that's the convergence in my mind. The way you don't need a physical product, but you have the AI stuff working with that spatial computing. I think that's what they're trying to push.
Yeah.
Even the glasses, right? Like Google Lens has been around. They had the Meta Vision, or like I think that's probably where it's going to go.
Where it's going to go, yeah.
Long term, it'll probably be just a contact lens.
True.
Because again, you don't necessarily want to be wearing glasses.
Yeah.
Then contact lens, maybe that causes issues. How are you going to do the sound?
True.
Like the interactions. I always think Black Mirror. Implants, and then being able to kind of control it with gesture movements. I think gestures will be a big thing. If you can physically see that, again, that's Vision Pro. You can see what's happening with your fingers, your hands. There is a big tie-up though. There's kind of a lot of rumors going on now that Apple and OpenAI have got some sort of partnership being announced later this year. We'll see at the next Apple event whether or not, because I think they've been now going, we need to get into the AI game. The hype is getting real.
Yeah.
And they'll make a move, I think.
So there's been some research regarding, we're going to move a little bit away from the AI to some of the funding processes that have been happening. So Magnet has conducted some research on this. So in April, they found that the overall funding in early 2024 in MENA was lower than last year. And this is interesting because it does seem as if Mina is doing really well with the funding and everything from face value, but from the inside, it's a little different. And what do you guys have to say about that?
Saad was busy.
Yeah.
Q1 this year, he was busy.
Yeah,
She didn't
financial
invest as much.
expert. We'd like to hear from the financial experts.
Yeah, I think what Wahaj meant is taking money, getting funded. No, I think it's you've hit the nail on the head that it does seem like a lot of hype train right now. Like, I mean, the way we've had a few really massive events happening around Leap and Seamless was apparently really good. So it seemed like things are a bit hot. But yeah, I think the devil's in the details. So, but I think we also need to give it we need to give it time because of all the things that are currently happening in the larger political space, which creates this uncertainty, especially for funds that are overseas and they're not located locally.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of challenge that I think the whole market is facing. It's not just for funds, but it's also for businesses in general.
Yeah.
So
There was an interest, like, so again, from the business side, that seems to be the case. I think personal investment in UAE has definitely increased. Like, I think there was some crazy stats. The UK, so Brits are now the number one expat investor
nice.
in property and things in the UAE as a group at the moment. So I don't know,
Fantastic.
maybe I won't be alone.
Yeah.
There'll be loads more Brits here.
True.
No, there's already a decent size, but it's interesting the way I think the market, obviously there was a lot of influx of Russians and Ukrainians initially. That's kind of stopped or kind of stemmed a little bit. But it's interesting where I think Dubai is just the market that never loses, right?
That's true.
It's in the middle. But I think from a business standpoint, last year there was probably a lot more kind of fun money. Everyone was seeing AI and they were going, oh, AI, yeah, let's throw some money at it.
Yeah.
And I think now that's kind of going, okay, well, actually, is anyone making some money from this? And that's an important thing, right? You've got to be able to
100%.
sell it as a business. Going back to commercials, like, it's great to have this technology, but if it doesn't make money, that's the number one objective of a business.
And surprisingly, the increase in the financial funding that we've seen has been in Kenya, Turkey, and Egypt because of some of the apps that are doing pretty well. But they also found that most of the funded Saudi startups, they're basically all repeat entrepreneurs that are getting the funding.
Very interesting.
So it's just like a cycle that's repeating.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think
that's
previous founders, right? Like, you bet on a horse, and then it comes
Yeah.
in, you go,
Exited people.
yeah. I
Exited
think that's
founders
another good idea.
I think it's also safe betting, right? You know,
Yeah.
someone's run something, exited, so you kind of have that reliance that he'll probably make the second one work too, or the third one, whatever the number is.
So it's interesting because at the end of last year or in the last quarter, Q4, there was a lot of discussion about investors looking through the valuation game, where it was more about, okay, valuation is one thing, but where are you making profits? Are you making profits? Is the cash flow coming through?
Yeah.
And I think that's because we've been in this cycle of value, and then exit, and then whether the company is making profits, it doesn't matter, right? But I think in the last 1 year, the liquidity has dried up. I think you were discussing this in your last podcast as well.
Yeah.
And obviously then it's more about the safe bets that you've just mentioned, that whoever's exited in the past with a successful project, that's where the funding goes. And that's probably what's happening with this region as well. It's more waterfall for us. It happens first in the US and in the European markets, and we get a waterfall effect in 6 to 9 months time. I think that's what's happening.
And linked to that is also, you mentioned the Buy FinTech Summit and events that are happening like Seamless and Leap as well. But the Buy FinTech Summit just happened recently, and there were some key takeaways from that. So we've seen that fintech growth in the MENA region has obviously increased, but there's been some challenges that have been identified as well. So there's a skilled workforce shortage still, and there's a need for experts in app development, risk management, and also data security. There's also the funding difficulties for growth that we just talked about. What in your mind is the solution to some of these problems? What do you think we can do to overcome some of these challenges?
It's a big loaded question.
Well, so one thing that I did hear from that, as a highlight from it, was that actually fintech in MENA only accounts for 1% of the overall business. So like when you think about it in terms of 1%, and there's quite a lot going on. 1% is nothing. Like it's only just started. So I think like in terms of the fintech space, crazy interesting. We've talked about WeO before.
Yeah.
And so WeO announced their results, and there was a really good interview on Dubai Eye today with the CEO. And basically, they were profitable in their first full year of operations.
Nice.
One of the fastest, I think, in the world as a neobank. And it was really interesting the way that they did an offering that was higher to kind of bring people in, but the app is very interesting. So I think that is quite an interesting model. There's a lot of neobanks. I know Revolut is one of the big ones that I love Revolut. I think the app and the experience is great. They're moving into the UAE. I think there's a lot of kind of big movements in the fintech space.
We're going to move back to AI for a little bit again. So there's been news that OpenAI has striked a deal with Reddit, and they're going to train its AI on the posts that are happening on Reddit. I'm going to let Vahad speak about that because he's a little bit of a Reddit expert, I guess.
I think Saad's a bigger Reddit
right.
expert. He's the one who got me to.
So
I'm a lurker. Yeah,
I am too. I don't usually contribute much, but if I do, I sometimes answer questions of UA or accounting very discreetly.
Yeah.
It's on my username.
We talked about the IPO before.
Yeah, we did. Was that right?
I actually can't remember the price. Like I think there was a pump and dump. I'm pretty sure there was a pump and dump.
Okay.
I can't remember. We still there's a lot more to happen.
Yeah, it's still very recent though. Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think about the integration of ChatGPT into Reddit? You know how you've got on LinkedIn, you've got the OpenAI suggested responses.
Yeah.
I think you'll see OpenAI become really sarcastic.
Yeah.
because a lot of the comments there are super sarcastic and pulling someone's leg. But I think as opposed to all the Google or the website training data, anything that OpenAI uses, Reddit is like people's data, right?
Yeah.
So people contributing, people like me, you, Saad.
And most of it anonymous, like at least to a large extent, like unless they're giving that away. Yeah.
So you can say anything that you want, basically.
Right. So it is unfiltered.
Yeah.
And it is a question and then 1,000 answers or 100 answers.
Or 1,000 sarcastic responses.
Yeah.
Or 1,000 sarcastic responses. Either way, you're winning, right?
Yeah.
Because you either get to be entertained or you get to know something that you didn't know, right? So I think that training data would be very interesting. I'm looking forward to it. If I had an option, I'd probably choose Reddit and just be like, can you tell me? But interestingly, if you today go and prompt ChatGPT, like type something or give me a response like Reddit, it will try and mimic that.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm pretty sure Reddit's data is already on it. It may not be in full, it may be limited. I'm not sure what the specifics are, but it does look like OpenAI has used some sort of training data from Reddit already.
Yeah, but now it kind of has like that whole permission to just keep using
it. I think that.
And we must not forget, Sam Altman is an ex-investor in Reddit. Like they were.
Didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Y Combinator had invested in Reddit. They shot it up. So I think round 1 or something. But yeah, so they have really old roots together. So I'm not surprised. It should be fun.
I see. I like the only thing that I'm a little bit nervous about. So again, I think LinkedIn and Reddit are probably the two, and LinkedIn less so now because of all these kind of AI generative responses that are integrated. But I do get a little bit worried that we're just rehashing the same information and the wording becomes the same, and like it becomes a kind of monotonous drawl, and we're limiting some of the kind of mistypings or the kind of like the sarcastic remarks and those things will
the opportunities to meme.
Exactly. Meme master generals.
So somebody was making fun of these LinkedIn posts, right? And it was a picture of a woman who's getting a guy who's getting a divorce or something, and they're like,
that's not funny.
That's how. and the caption was something like, it's like a LinkedIn post. I just got divorced, and this is what it taught me about B2B sales. And then it's like pointers. Yeah, it's insane. But so one of the last things that we'll talk about before the rapid fire, which is always fun. So the maker of Stable Diffusion is collapsing, and it's considering sale. I guess maybe Matt might want to speak a little bit.
Well, they had a few issues. So I think one was that they got in trouble with Getty Images. So again, they were using that for, was it stability, not stability AI, but sorry, it was the image diffusion model that they generated. They they got caught out. I don't know how. I'm assuming that an image was created and it had the Getty images.
Recreate with the logo and the watermark.
And so they got in a lot of trouble with that. So I think there's some lawsuit going on at the moment. The CEO actually left earlier this year, and I think he's starting something else. So I mean, they raised a lot of money, and now they're kind of struggling. I think they had, I think it was 100 million in cost, and they only made like 2 million in revenue in Q1.
They lost over $30 million in the same period.
Wow.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I tripled the numbers, but
Nice.
sounds a little bit better when you exaggerate. They lost $20 billion.
He's hallucinating. This is an
This
example
is
of
hallucination. It ties back. So we're
Explain
gonna
it.
circle back to your answer as well for the whose
voice?
voice are you gonna use?
Think.
Yeah.
But I think you have some updates, Matt, for.
Yes, we're going to
discuss
move towards Simpla's updates as well before we finally end the round with the rapid fire. So just have the floor.
So interestingly, you were talking about Claude. So I know Anthropic have launched a prompt generation engine. So really, really cool. It was actually something that we'd been kind of working on for quite a while. So basically, we've got Prompt Plus that we're working on at the moment. The idea being that we'll create a really easy front end to the Simpla platform, which allows you to kind of customize certain things like suggested prompts, but focus around you as a business, but also action prompts. So things like writing emails, things like that. Minimal input, and then we will do all the prompt engineering on the back end. So
Nice.
do chain of thought, chain of reasoning, so different kind of prompting styles that we can do in order to create some really, really cool outputs. And we're even looking at kind of tone of voice. You can basically tweak your tone of voice. You can like use some sliders to change expert level, simplify it.
Oh, nice.
Simplify.
Simplify. Always plug your own brand.
Yeah, have to.
Yeah, nice.
Catchphrase.
Nice.
So we've got that coming out. We've also got our advice sign-off piece coming out, which is basically a human in the loop process. So again, kind of falling back to the hallucination issue. What we've done is we've got our in-house advisors, so sponsored by our sister partner. Basically, the idea being that as part of subscription, you also get all the questions that you want to ask in the Simpla platform, but then you'll also be able to get a human advisor to then review the answer if you're like, yeah, I like this, but I want to make sure that that's correct. You'll be able to send that to an advisor, and within, I think, I want to say minutes, but it will probably be we'll have an SLA that will be probably a few hours. And then within that time, you'll then be sent a signed piece of advice confirmed by the advisor, and they'll give any comments or any extra bits that might be relevant to you as part of that. So that's going to be a big thing there.
So may I just ask you to elaborate on that piece? The advice is still accurate. Am I right to believe that? And then
so it's just a verification. So I think the next 5 to 10 years is how do we get comfortable knowing that AI is correct? So we're pretty confident that we're about 90 to 95% accurate with our responses through Simpla. But actually what we want to do is give people the confidence that humans are still able to look over this and kind of verify that. And I think that's still going to be around for the next 5 to 10 years when you're building kind of workflows and understanding. You don't necessarily just want to follow it because, again, there's those predetermined states of hallucinations and accuracy issues. Is it up to date? Maybe something's outdated. Again, we keep everything up to date within kind of 5 days. So any laws that come out within that kind of 5-day window, we'll have it updated, tested, and then verified and put through on our system.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's a very exciting time. So that'll be coming out in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Nice.
So that'll be launched. So watch the space for that.
Nice.
And we've also started launching our Simpla advisory platform. So basically, this is more of a kind of B2B on a bigger scale. So we have a first cohort of 20 companies that are basically going to be doing free trial, and then we'll be launching their kind of custom platform. And the idea is that we're going to build something that helps them to service their customers quicker and faster, and also kind of make that SLA time. I think even by just reaching out to a few companies, the response time took quite a while, and that's the sort of thing that we really want to kind of get out of the way. I think the red tape and the kind of speed of results is kind of where the UAE is going to champion over the next 5 to 10 years.
Nice.
I think being able to create an environment which is friendly to startups, friendly to companies is really important. The more the business comes into this market, you want to make it easier to navigate, and it can be kind of top class in that response. I think we can be the partner for that.
Nice.
That's the aim.
Absolutely.
So yeah, exciting stuff. So watch this space.
Yeah. Thanks for the updates. We're gonna move.
Shameless plug.
We're going to move on to the best part of the podcast, which is the rapid fire, which is my favorite round. So, the first question to all of you, what was the first question you asked ChatGPT when it was launched?
I asked what it can do for me. So how I can be even more lazy. It's like, give me a list of things you can do. It's like, I can do everything. Can give you results for any questions you have and stuff. So yeah, I think pretty sure that was one
Yeah.
of the first things I asked.
What about you, Matt?
I think it was something along the lines of like, so I was actually, I hadn't used it. I'd been talking to these guys about using it as well, and we'd been talking about it, but actually hadn't used it. And then I was talking to someone in the office, my old office. I was like, oh, just give me something to do. And they were like, write my cover letter. And I was like, probably shouldn't tell me that, but that's okay. So then basically write me a cover letter, and then it wrote out a very good kind of cover letter to start with, obviously very basic and kind of template, but then obviously tweaking it afterwards and kind of creating something was probably the first one.
I don't remember exactly what was my first question, but I know a couple of interesting ones that I've asked it, right? So the first, I think I remember this very clearly when the interface was really poor. I asked, what do you know about VAT laws? Or what do you know UAE tax laws? And it gave me something, and then it lied, right? And I was like, it doesn't know anything. I called up Bahaj and was like, no, it does not know anything.
Yeah.
I think at that time, the training data was like very, very. I mean, it would give you anything that's very
It was 2000
generic.
and something, right? 2020.
No,
Yeah.
It was trained till 2020.
This is GPT-3.
This is GPT-3 or 3.3 actually. Yeah,
3. That's when
that's the
ChatGPT.
yes. It's
So it
not
wasn't 20.
ChatGPT,
It was
Pre-ChatGPT.
it was 22, I think.
Mm.
22.
probably.
Yeah, 22.
Yeah.
But it was. I know why it was wrong was because it would give you like the standard rate is 5, and then you say what about 15? He's like, yeah, it's also 15.
Yeah.
And we're like, what? Like, what are you?
So
talking
as you
about?
can see, we don't say lying. We just use the word hallucination.
Or-
All of these are hallucination examples.
Misleading.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, Wahaj has too much respect for the AI to
Yeah.
actually call it out. But okay,
just like
It's a massive. It's a
yeah.
massive start. We're
just
getting
mask
somewhere.
it a little bit. So the other question is, which tech or sci-fi movie would you like to become real? So if any movie could just become reality, which one do you want? Would you want?
If one of you say Ex Machina, I'm gonna.
no, not at all. That's a scary one.
Which sci-fi or tech movie?
Or even like I don't know, Harry Potter or something.
You
I
know,
really
That's
want.
fantasy.
Oh
So
well,
you
well,
can't-
fantasy
yeah,
as well.
you
Well,
can't-
fantasy as well.
I think I've actually like had a bit of a resurgence. RoboCop. I know it's a bit
that's actually pretty
dystopian.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I
But
think
that's a very
80s
safe one.
vibe.
yeah.
Keep us safe, sir. Yeah, I'm with you.
Nice.
I think I would really want to live the sitcom Silicon Valley.
Oh,
I think I'll.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
yeah. That
So-
would
That's
be-
not sci-fi though.
Pied
I
Piper.
know. I mean,
But it's tech also. It's tech. so-
techish.
Yeah,
We'll
techish,
take
right,
it.
okay.
I think I can see you being the Pied Piper guy. You're like the main guy, the Pied Piper developer.
Except I don't know development. So I just tell the developers to do something for me.
But
What would be
but
yours?
I don't think they're actually developers either in the show. So like they're meant to be. They're playing them, but I don't think they're actually
Yeah.
tech guys.
What about you, Sam?
So it's. I mean, I think to any geek, I think the obvious answer is Star Wars.
Yeah,
you-
that's what I was expecting.
Yeah,
from
I mean,
you.
it's the you know the lightsabers and the
Yeah.
and the travel,
The Darth Vader
yeah,
and
all of that. So
Yeah.
100% that. I mean, even if the whole thing doesn't happen, I think slowly we're getting to that. MKBHD apparently had a video where Disney's produced a lightsaber,
A real one.
a real lightsaber that has a light shooting up. It doesn't cut people,
Oh, okay.
but it's
Oh,
not glass.
so
But
now
it's
we-
not
we don't-
glass.
we don't need
But it's
that.
not glass. It's not glass. They're using some material that was confidential, and that's pretty cool. I think that should be fun.
I'm definitely going to see you running around. with
And
a
who's
lightsaber.
who's gonna say the lines, "Luke, I am your father"? Who's gonna end with that? But that's all for our episode today. And if you guys
Oh.
like this,
Before we go, name your voice.
oh yeah,
Nima, oh my.
Nice try.
you
Just
looped me
say
into
your
it.
wife, she's gonna be happy.
I want to give a deep answer, but
What about Ibrahim? What about your son?
probably my daughter. Actually,
Oh,
probably my daughter.
that's
Noor.
cute. That's
she's the one that I miss the most. Oops.
Oh, no, we'll end it here, guys.
That is so wrong.
We'll just end it here, guys.
We'll cut it in
here.
post. We'll cut it in
Yeah,
post.
and on that bombshell.
Bye. But
Thank you
no,
very much.
thanks so much for watching this. If you are watching this, and if you like this, then please subscribe to us and keep watching this space for more updates regarding Simpla. We'll be back with another episode. Thank you so much, guys, for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Yeah,
and
Please befriend Wahaj.
follow Wahaj and
make
This
friends
was
with
not
Wahaj.
sponsored. I just want to clarify. This was not.
no, follow all of these guys, but and follow me as well. And so yeah, we'll end it here. But thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.